Also, you had mentioned in a recent interview that your depression had resurfaced while shooting for Chhapaak. So, is that because you were literally in the shoes of an acid attack survivor?
I wouldn't say my depression came back. That would have been very extreme. I felt the anxiety was coming back. I was feeling very low emotionally. And I think that's because the character took a toll on me. I wouldn't say the depression came back. You know, there are characters that have that sort of effect on you when you're playing certain characters. And at a professional level, I feel good that I felt that way, because if I was not feeling that way, I'd always question, did I give enough of myself to it? But at a personal level, you're really struggling, you know. So it's always that strange dichotomy of like, how much is too much.
And being a fighter and survivor yourself, when a lot of people don't understand what you're going through, how does that make you feel? Because there are so many people who cannot fathom that someone like Deepika Padukone can, you know, undergo depression, as in, although you've spoken about it so often, and there are still people out there who think that, you know, we don't understand what she's talking about. Do you think that's a reason why, you know, that is another topic that needs to, you know, go out there? And
yes, and I mean, that's what we do through the foundation. We do talk about mental health, the importance of mental health. We talk about mental illness, and that's what I did in 2014 when I came out with my story on depression. I think we've come a long way since then. I feel like our country has evolved in terms of our understanding and our acceptance of mental health. I think through reporting, I think the media is doing a great job in writing so much more about it. There's so much more awareness. So we're definitely on the right path. But I think we still have a long way to go for it to become a part of our everyday lifestyle. And that's what it needs to be. Our mental health and physical health needs to be a part of our everyday lifestyle. It's not something that can conveniently come in and go when it's convenient for us. So hopefully one day, you know, we'll get to that place. But at least, you know, people have been receptive. People understand it. On ground, we can definitely see a lot of change, and I feel like the media has a huge role to play in that.
And I have to ask you, how has your husband Ranveer Singh, you know, supported you through your journey?
He's been extremely supportive. I feel like for me, having that sort of quality in a partner has always been almost sort of a prerequisite. I've seen that in my parents. I've seen how supportive my mother has been of my father, and I've seen how supportive my father has been of my mother in her professional life. And I've grown up in an environment where, you know, they're both equal in their marriage. And I think, you know, we have such great examples in our family that, at least for me, I've been an extremely ambitious person. You know, I've always dedicated my life to my work, and it was important for me to not only find someone who is supportive of that, but someone who's also okay with my success, who respects my success, who respects the profession that I'm in. So understanding and respecting, I think these, and supporting, I think these things were important for me, and I've found all of those things in her.
Why this began? Because you took a journey to speak about your own struggles. That was very brave that you did that, very unusual that you did that. Talk us through that period when you were making that decision to speak so openly about this.
Good evening, everyone. You know, you used two words. You said brave and unusual. But when I spoke out in 2014, I didn't think it was brave or unusual. I just felt that I was being honest with an experience that changed my life forever. And for anyone who's ever experienced mental illness, it can be, I'm not saying it is, it can be a lonely journey. And I think that's when I realized that speaking up is how I wanted to take that journey forward. It was my learning, probably my calling, where I felt like even if by speaking up, if I was able to impact just one life, the purpose would be served. Where in 2022, I never imagined that today, you know, if you asked me in 2014, would I be sitting here having this conversation with you about the incredible work the foundation has done? No. At that point, it was really about just doing one interview on a national television or one interview just to be able to reach out to as many people as possible and share my experience. And then when I did that, it didn't feel to me like the journey ended there. It felt like just the beginning. It felt like there was so much more to say and so much more to do. And that culminated into the foundation and all of the work that we do today. Wow. And symptoms. Because it just happened out of the blue. I was on a career high, everything was going well, so there was no reason or no apparent reason why I should have felt the way I was feeling. But I would break down, for no reason. I would feel, there were days when I just didn't want to wake up. I would just sleep because sleep for me was an escape. I was suicidal at times. And so, having to deal with all of that, and when my parents live in Bangalore, and every time they sort of visited me, even now when they visit me, I always put on a brave front, like everything is okay, and you always want to show your parents that you're fine, and so I was doing one of those things of like, I'm fine, until, they were leaving one day, they were going back to Bangalore, and I broke down, and my mother asked me the usual hygiene questions like, is it a boyfriend? Is it someone at work? Has something happened? And I just didn't have answers. It was none of these things. And it just came from a really empty, hollow place. And she knew instantly. And I think that for me was godsend. And I really hope, and I think that's one of the reasons why I set up the foundation, for us to be able to create that awareness, to be sensitive to the people around us, to look around us. If someone's feeling low, don't just pat them on the back and say, hey, you know what, it's going to be okay, or, hey, you'll be fine. Or just listen to this music or play some upbeat music and think that everything's going to be okay. If you feel, and this is for everyone in this room, if you feel for a prolonged period of time, which is more than 3 weeks, if you feel a feeling of low or sadness, it is recommended that you see a psychiatrist or at least see a counselor. And my theory is always, I'd rather be overcautious than not. It's the same way when you have, a stomach bug, or, you go and see a general practitioner. You can also go and see a general practitioner. That's one of the things that we do. We're capacity building for our country because we do not have enough mental health professionals to serve the 1.3, 1.4 billion people. So one of the things that we do is capacity building by educating general practitioners. So I'd say don't ignore the signs and symptoms. Don't ignore when someone's telling you they're feeling low or not feeling okay. Don't sort of brush it off by saying it's just a one-off. So coming back to this, yes, it's my mother who recognized that I needed help. I spoke to a counselor who I knew. Again, I was fortunate to have known someone within our family circle. And from my voice, she could tell that I needed professional help. And then the journey went on. I was put on to a psychiatrist, medication, that sort of went back and forth for many months. I was resistant to that because there was so much stigma attached, A, to mental illness, B, to, you always have these sort of ideas that you don't want to take medication to do with the mind and with the brain, and you're going to lose control. And so that went on for a couple of months until I finally started taking medication and I started feeling better and so on. So yes, it was the immediate people around me knew, but at that point I wasn't ready to tell very many people. It's after I recovered, after many, many months, when I was sitting back and just thinking about this experience that I'd been through, that I felt like I wanted to share my journey with the world.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.